Committee of the whole is called back to order. Unfortunately, we don't have a quorum. I'd like to thank my colleagues that have joined me this afternoon. We have Senator Frank Blanche, Senator Jesse Luan, Senator Tom Fisher, and also Senator Roy, who just stepped out. But otherwise, once we reach quorum, we will continue. So we will return back to recess. The committee of the whole is called back to order. We have a quorum. We will continue on first round. I did speak to Senator Shelton. She had no question for the first round. We'll proceed. Vice Speaker is off island. Senator Brown is not present. We will just continue on. Senator Lujan, do you have any questions for the panel?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Am I the last one? You want me to close? I can close.
No. You're on this round. It's on you now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome back, panel. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay. We're good? Ready to go? Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Ask any questions you like.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And good afternoon, panel. Welcome back. Ms. Lillian, yesterday we passed resolution 215 calls for the emergency declaration of emergency in the hospital. We passed that. Today we're taking up, of course, and I'm thankful to my colleagues for reconsideration and to take up, of course, Bill 164 as a funding source, again, for the declaration. Would you agree with the passage of, do you agree with the passage of 215 and hopefully the passage of 164?
Thank you for that question, Senator. Unfortunately, I haven't had time to really read through that resolution as it was reformatted. But the one that was published last week with regards to the Republican resolution, I understand it's pretty much the same gist, but it's just reformatted into.
Sure.
So to tell you the truth, I did not have a chance to read that resolution, so I apologize. But if the intent of that resolution is to help the hospital with the financial needs, then certainly I thank you. I thank the legislature and this legislative body for passing that resolution to help the hospital with.
And I thank my colleagues, and I thank, of course, again, the proclamation of an emergency to be able to get us into this emergency session. Okay. And as was mentioned by numerous of my colleagues, that the resolution, the passage of a resolution without a funding source will be basically...
Didn't mean any, this would mean,
absolutely. Right. So we are now discussing of course, the bill 164, and we're getting to the point, of course, that looks like we've identified some funding sources. But let me ask you with this situation, because we've read about this, and we've had numerous calls from not only physicians but nurses and other hospital staff regarding shortages at the hospital, and I think it's not anything new that we haven't heard about, not just in this administration but in previous administrations. Where are we at in regards to the shortage of supplies and the supply chain that we have right now? The fact that we owe vendors and whether or not they're still supplying us. Again, even if some of those suppliers are owed, and out of the goodness of their hearts, I guess, and knowing that what they're providing is vital for the hospital. Where are we at in supplies?
In terms of supplies, yes, on occasion we do have a shortage of supplies, but as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these vendors, out of the goodness of their heart, yes, we owe them money, but they also know that this is our public hospital, sure. And so they send us some supplies, just to carry us over till we're able to then make some payments. But we also have this collaborative relationship with GRMC that, if we don't have the supplies, they have it, they loan us those supplies, and then when we get our stock back up, we replenish their supplies, vice versa. They call on us also if they don't have the supplies, we then provide them some of those supplies. So it's an ongoing process, sure. In terms of just restocking, making sure that we do pay the vendors. But again, for the most part, these vendors have been really quite supportive of the
Okay.
hospital, and they understand the need.
Sure. You know, we've heard some horror stories as well, and I've gotten actually a couple calls from patients who underwent this situation where they were in the operating room and were ready to be put under, and obviously there was a lack of a certain
Catheter?
something, yeah,
Correct. Right.
and that then the operation was delayed or whatever it may be. Where we at in things like that? Because we have not only elective surgeries, but surgeries that are, again, that need
Sure.
need to be done. Where we at in those supplies? Because we're the only public hospital, and we need those. I mean,
Correct.
the elective, maybe we can wait a little bit, but for those unexpected and must-do surgeries, are we all right with that? I mean, we obviously need the money. I mean, the money's needed because, like you said, it's a perpetual thing that we have shortages, right?
Correct. And for that particular situation, Senator, there was that one incident where the gentleman came in, and it was a scheduled catheter, cardiac catheter, and, you know, we have put into place that the day before, the team is supposed to really take a look at the stock and making sure that we have the supplies for those procedures that are scheduled the next day. So those have been put into place, and, you know, sometimes I guess the staff, they get preoccupied or busy with other things, but they're making sure that there's that double check of, let's make sure tomorrow, these are the cases that are scheduled, let's make sure that we have the supplies. And if we don't have it, then we need to let the patient know that we're gonna need to reschedule your procedure. But for the most part, the supplies have been, you know, we've been getting the supplies.
Yeah. Okay, no, because it's vital. I mean,
Yes.
if the patient would have been anesthetized already, you know, and procedure not to happen because of the supply shortage, and, you know, I mean, I hope that there was maybe corrective actions taken, and, you know, because these are liabilities that the hospital will incur and has incurred in the past, where supposedly lives have been lost because of for lack of a better word, lack of attention given to situations that should have been vital. And so, you know, we should know that. I mean, you know, patients should know that that this is what we have versus not, and not wait to the last minute. But that being said, thank you for your candidness on that. But let me ask you this as well, because I know the former Speaker and Public Auditor B.J. Cruz yesterday told us that, and I've been saying this, and this is going to be the problem of the shortage of money for the hospital is going to be a perpetual problem because of the mandate that regardless of the ability or inability to pay, you're going to see patients. And we're losing more and more people, more taxpayers that are choosing to take residency elsewhere. And the same token, we're having more folks come in here, and possibly with the inability to pay for health care. And so we can anticipate those numbers to rise. Your uncollectibles will rise. So I said this yesterday, that when we went from the old GMH to what is now was the new GMH, was formerly the NCM, that problem went to that hospital, and whether we go to another new hospital, that will transfer to the new hospital as well. That problem will be there. The new hospital won't take care of that perpetual problem that we have. Is that correct?
Well, like you said, we really need to be creative in finding other funding sources, such as grants, you know, but we do need to find alternate sources to support the financial.
Okay. So just last thing. The $20 million that the governor had promised to come from the ARP funds, and the $30 million, much needed. You endorse the need?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ron. I know that Senator Brown just walked in a couple minutes, about less than a minute before I asked Senator Ron. Senator Brown, did you have any questions? If not, I'm going to go ahead and continue on. Senator Brown.
I know you probably prefer I don't have questions, but I do want to ask a few.
All right.
I want to go back to that issue. I know the speaker brought that up, but this system that you guys purchased, this EHR system, how much did that cost, if I can ask the hospital? How much did this system cost that now we're hearing is not workable?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't quite
I know
hear
the
it.
speaker had brought this up, but this EHR system that you guys acquired that we're hearing is not working or not functional?
It's working,
Okay.
but it's not working to the level that we expected it. We're interfacing. Like, for example, you get admitted to surgical floor, all the services that are provided, laboratory, radiology, respiratory, all those charges not necessarily then get interfaced to the billing. And so the billing team have to go back manually to then make sure that whatever those services or whatever charges are incurred for your hospitalization, that gets into the system in terms of the billing and the coding into then a claim to your insurance provider.
I know previous presentations was that the system, as you relayed, was supposed to do all that. So that,
Was
that
our
it would help
expectation,
facilitate,
correct.
because I understand, the manual process with the amount of billings you do every day and, just a single patient, I'm sure there could be a whole number of things that the hospital has to bill on. So what happened with regards to the inability? Why is it not working, and what options do you have? Was that the deliverable on the contract for this system?
We're working very closely with the MedSphere company
Okay.
who owns the product. And so we're also needing to work on our hardware because there are some limitations with our hardware. But it's an ongoing process. Communication with the company, MedSphere, with our team have been ongoing. And so, this is the product that we have. We're making the best of it.
I understand, but again, if you have a contract deliverable, is it your system that's the setback? And I assume they would have done an assessment to tell you what you need to upgrade or replace in order to make this work. If that's done, is it going to be workable? Because there were comments that were floating around here a little earlier that the system needs to be replaced with something else, and that concerns me. How much did the system cost?
How much
has
is it going to
the
cost?
hospital? Yeah, how much have you paid, or is there something left you still have to pay for it?
In the 5 years that we've had the product and working towards getting it launched in October last year, we've paid the company about $4 million, and it's ongoing. We do owe them right now about $400,000, so probably reaching $5 million now since the 5 years that we've procured the product.
Are you optimistic that you're going to be able to address what you need on your end, and they're going to address what they need on their end to make this equipment workable for the hospital?
We're optimistic as soon as we make that payment, because that's what really is holding us up. That's why they put us on support hold. So we're optimistic.
So there's not a need, because comments were made here that there may be a need to replace this system.
There may be a need to replace the system?
Yeah, those comments were made here. That's why I just wanted clarification, because,
Okay.
you would understand, I'm sure if you're going to invest this amount of money to get this in place, I think we wouldn't want to see that we're going to dispose of it and we got to purchase a new system, because those comments were made here on the floor. That's why I'm asking for clarification.
We are looking to replace it, as I said earlier. We thought, we were convinced by the company when they came out, their experts and their clinical people, their team, we were convinced that it is a product that will work for us in our landscape, in our environment as a hospital. We've discovered that this product was primarily built for the landscape of a behavioral health, not for an acute care hospital setting. And so our team, they work with their team to build it so it fits into our landscape as an acute care hospital. But it's a program that the technical expertise, the engineers have to tweak it. And they were able to tweak it to a point where it is functional, but it's still not to the level of 100% that we expected to. So
In the procurement of it, wouldn't that have been outlined by GMH of what your deliverables would have been, what you would have expected?
if we had gone through the RFP process, but we didn't. We went through the novation process because this product, this company, was affiliated with the existing company called Cantata. Their product, EHR product, was Optimum, that they were sunsetting. And so their recommendation in their sunsetting was for us to then transition to this MedSphere CareView through the novation process, not an RFP. If we had gone through an RFP, yes, we would have made those specifications as far as what we expect and what we want as deliverables for this EHR product.
So what recourse does the hospital have if you complete this process and it's still not functional to the level that you had anticipated?
And that's a very good question, and that's why we have our legal counsel reviewing the supposedly an agreement that we have gone into with this company, but it's really not an agreement is what we understand it to be. It's a subscription is what we have, subscription.
Well, I hope there's resolution because there's got to be some accountability somewhere. Because this was something a few years ago that was advocated that once it was in place, this is going to help facilitate your billing issue, which is,
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, especially for those that actually are able to pay, you want to make sure that they do pay, and it doesn't sound like we're there yet. I mean, if we have to go back to the manual process, we're no further along after $4 million. I had questioned during the budget hearing that we had with GMH, this pharmaceutical fund that was over $30 million. And I had asked that question because, again, OFB had relayed that, they're looking maybe between 17 to 19 million that's going to be generated annually in the pharmaceutical fund. And yet in the breakdown and presentation by GMH, it said 30 million plus. I asked, how do you reconcile that with the expectation you were going to have 30 million in the pharmaceutical fund?
If I may, so when we put the budget together, we were told to submit all the expenses that we had. And putting the budget together, we did have a big shortfall. And so in trying to relay that shortfall in our budget presentation to the legislature, we just put that number in to show the shortfall that we would have, despite the executive budget appropriation already for the general fund and the pharmaceutical fund. We were still very short for trying to meet the expectations for FY24.
If I can ask, then why wasn't it clarified? Because it looked like that's what you were expecting, anticipating in revenue versus this is the expenditure of what you're getting in that in terms of 30 million instead. I mean, if you're only getting 18 million, for example, and your actual expenditure is 30 there, or the need is there, it wasn't clear in your budget presentation.
And I apologize for that if it was not clear.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I asked that, because we're concerned. I mean, there's a presentation that there actually is going to be 30 million in the pharmaceutical fund, and it's not. It's
I
it's a big number. It's not a few dollars here or there, a few extra quarters or nickels. I mean, it's a substantial amount. If I can ask, I do have to ask, and I am going to say with little time I have left on this round, what was the plan for GMH with the administration? I mean, the administration came forth publicly, and they were going to do all this great stuff for healthcare and GMH, and I find it odd that it's the Republican minority here introducing a resolution to raise the issue of emergency at GMH when really, that should have come from you guys. You guys should have said, hey, we have a problem here, we need help. We're 5 years in the game. Time's running out, 3 years and counting down in 2 months. What are we doing differently or better so that we're not in this, because we've been at this a long time. I've been at it a long time. I mean, we have been, and we understand that you're going to continue to need to service those that are not able to. But we understand all that. But what is the get well plan for GMH? What was the agenda for the hospital with the administration in terms of getting us out of what is a repetitive situation?
Okay, if I may speak then to that question. The bigger picture is then to build a new hospital. We know that that's been well established by the Army Corps of Engineers and by previous assessments that were done many years ago, that the hospital needs to be replaced because it's just not keeping up with the code regulations for a facility. It's outgrown those standards, and so that is the bigger plan, is to have a new hospital in a medical campus. So there is that continuity of care between all the health agencies. That, I am also supportive of that. But before we get to that, we need to continue sustaining this current hospital because it's going to take some time to build that new hospital. So we need to have a concerted effort to keep that hospital operational. Because it may take probably, 7 years to build a new hospital. So we just need to really continue working together to keep that hospital operational and open for the people of Guam.
Well, my 19 seconds left and counting down. I mean, I do have to admit, I think that is the crisis, is ensuring that you do have the money to pay for the medical supplies and the resources that you need now to take care of patients. I mean, wonderful, a new hospital, but we can't even take care of the patients now with basic supplies. I think we have a major issue.
I disagree. We are taking care.
I understand
we
you
are
disagree.
taking care of the
You are
patients.
you're entitled to disagree, and I'm out of time, but we're here to represent the interests and concerns of the public. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to ask these questions.
Thank you. Senator Cananta, do you have any questions for the panel?
Yeah, simple. If we just make an amendment, or I don't know if it's for the panel, but the author of the legislation, if we just make the simple amendment, remove the 2023 audited revenue, I think we can just immediately nip this in the bud and move on with our lives. We can get focused back on the issue. We're trying to get the hospital fixed. So financially, if that's the issue, we got to get rid of the 2023 audited part and just use the 2022. Then can we move forward from that? Because that's my point here, is we just keep going around on the same issue. It's just like we're having another oversight hearing and we're not going anywhere. The 20 million's there, get it. The 30 million's there, get it. Move on.
Understood, Senator Cananta, but that's on the third round for the amendments. We just got to complete the rounds unless there's a motion to.
Yes, can I make a motion then to?
You can make a motion to anything. You can end the What's your question? Easy now, Senator Tadigui. He's making his statement. It's his time, not yours. Be nice, Senator Tadigui. Senator Tadigui, you're out of order, okay? I ask you and remind you of what the rules of engagement is. Okay, so just chill out. Senator Cananta, continue on with whatever you want to ask questions or not.
So I believe Mr. Lester had his hand raised, so I would like to yield to him.
Okay. Mr. Carlson?
Thank you, Senator Cananta, for your well-intentioned remarks. I think the issue with 23 is audited financials, and we won't get those for 9 months, a year. So we brought up the point that should be stricken. And I think we're working together on revised language that would be acceptable, which includes, like, since I earlier said we had to do what the public auditor suggested, which is clean up the checkbook for 2022, we've done that. So we're taking some 2022 funds that we didn't deobligate, adding that to a good 2023, reducing the provision for special revenue funds that are short, and it's all contained on that new one-pager that I had passed out. That's the summary. So I agree with what you're saying, but I think there's already a couple of efforts to revise that language and address your concerns, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, with that, I mean, how many more cycles are we going to go around? Another cycle, another 5 minutes. I mean, if we're trying to solve the situation with the hospital, let's get it done. Let's put this on the vote and move on. I mean, okay, you want to finish this? Okay. there's 10 more minutes. I'm just saying, if it's really an emergency situation, let's resolve it. Otherwise, let's wait till next election, right before the primary or the general, and we'll resolve it in that moment. Because if it's seriously a situational issue, then let's resolve it now. If we can nip it in the butt and get it done and over with. The money's here.
Do you have a motion, Senator Canata?
Well, I'm not gonna motion to, what do you call it, end the discussion, because already my colleague wants to talk, so she can have her 5 minutes. But, you know, I was just trying to figure out how much longer are we gonna keep going on this? If it's such an emergency, we're gonna wait till Monday to vote on this?
All right. Thank you, Senator Canata. Anything else? Anyone else?
No, that's it. I mean, I got nothing else further to say. I'm just trying to get it over and done with. If we just need to put one amendment, let's put the one amendment. I apologize for offending a colleague if, you know, I'm just trying to figure out the solution here. We know what the problems are. We know what the situation is with the hospital. Well, want to run a resolution? I'll just put it in bold font in text or what? So, yes. But other than that, Mr. Chair, that's it.
Thank you, Senator Canata. Senator Fisher, do you have any questions for the panel?
I do, Chair. Thank you very much. And good afternoon to the panel. I apologize to you for our tardiness. We told you 2 o'clock, and we weren't able to start till 2:25. I can assure you in the future we'll try and do better. And I have to, to an extent, I have to echo Senator Canata's position. You know, many of us have military backgrounds. You don't raise a problem unless you have a solution, and that's what he's looking for, and that's what we're all looking for. But it occurs to me, today is October 13th, and many of you may know that today is the second birthday of the 21st century Health and Healthcare Act of 2021. Today is the actual second anniversary. I'm going to try and hurry up here a little bit because I was looking at when the governor, Governor Leon Guerrero, signed this. She was very effusive in her happiness with what we did here. Those of you who are unfamiliar, the 21st Century Healthcare Center Act is a comprehensive plan to take care of the hospital today and build the new hospital. It has been in place for at least 2 years. Nothing has happened. And so, Ms. Posadas, I'm going to put the first question to you. Has GITA, who is supposed to be basically in charge of this situation, has GITA done anything they were required to do pursuant to the Act?
We've been meeting with GITA when we first launched the task force to discuss the plan to build a new hospital, because GITA is the one that has been designated to be in charge of the grant that the governor was awarded for, by the Office of Economic Adjustment to then begin the plan for the new hospital, new medical campus. So we've been meeting, and GITA has done some work, preliminary work with land management, and they've done quite a bit of discussions with regards to finance. Senator Joseph Augustine introduced legislation with regards to some financial for $35 million for for the new hospital, and plus for GITA to have a study to reuse that facility once we vacate it and we go into the. So there's been a lot of discussion and work around with GITA, but it's been on pause because of the land issue. We got into a landlock situation when the Eagles Field option did not go through. So now the governor is pursuing another location. So
okay, so we just need to find the location and then we can launch on this thing and get it going?
We can continue the dialogue, correct.
Because it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years since this act passed. I just noticed in her letter, the governor, again, she was quite effusive. She said that, construction of the new facility, hospital, as well as new facilities for the agencies involved, fulfills a promise Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio and I made when we first took office to put the health care and the well-being of the people of Guam first, dedicating the necessary American Rescue Plan funds to that. And she said, this is one of the greatest privileges of being governor. Bravo, Governor, I agree with you. You need to take care of the health care. Everybody agrees. under this act, she has begun by saying she needs to put $330 million of ARP money towards the creation of the new hospital, and then $35 million at least per year continuing to pay for the lease back, which would be coming from the reimbursement. I apologize for talking so fast, but the clock's running. The reimbursement from the EITC funds. It's comprehensive. There's no need for us to reinvent the wheel, is the way I look at it. But so let me ask you, in your best estimate, your best professional estimate, when will this plan be done? They've had 2 years. When will the plan be done? The financing, which they're required to do, the design, the RFP, the whole shooting match from soup to nuts, they are supposed to be taking care of this with the input, of course, from GMH. When's it going to be done?
I'm kind of basing it on when Naval Hospital was built. It took about 5-7 years for them, but we still don't even have the land. So.
Right. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I got a little bit ahead of myself. I don't mean done in the sense that the hospital's going to, turn over the keys. When is the plan going to be done so you guys can start building the hospital, and we can hopefully come up with the money to help you?
Right. Well, first we need to get the land.
Okay, so that's it. If we get the land, we can go?
We can go forward with probably having to do an RFP as far as who will come up with the A&E design for this new hospital. So that's going to take some time again.
Okay, and I think the governor submitted a bill for our consideration as to the land. I think it's across from Hawaiian Rock, back road.
The governor submitted a bill?
I think so. I might not
that's what I understand.
Okay. All right, well, I hope we can address that ASAP.
I hope so too.
Without screwing around with the politics of it and et cetera and so forth, because if we don't get this hospital fixed, we're going to lose people literally, and people are just going to leave island. You can't live in a place with no health care.
Correct.
So I guess I've made all the points I want to make, but I would also note when I saw this, I'm glad to hear that you said something's being done, because I was wondering whether or not this was official misconduct if nothing had been done, because inaction by Gita is depriving me of a benefit, and that's a crime. I'm a citizen. So good. I'm glad that there is a fire underneath all of you. Let's get that new hospital built, and let's quit bickering and fooling around on it. And I know you agree. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. Senator Taidu, do you have any questions for the panel?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleagues for allowing us, the remaining of us, to ask questions. My question is to Lester. Lester, I'm showing here lapses of FY21 in the amount of $1.5 million. Is that correct? FY21, according to your documents that you submitted to us, page 1 of 16.
That's the audit balance.
When you say audit balance, that means lapses or excess?
There's a surplus.
Surplus, meaning, can you explain the difference? What is surplus?
You got money in your wallet.
In other words, we give an agency $500,000 to spend, they only spend $200, so we have what, surplus of $3? Is that what you mean by surplus?
When all of the requirements, and maybe Mr. Burns a better person to speak about the audit, but the bottom line is that we ended up 21 with a surplus, a nominal one, but a surplus.
So again, can you answer my question? Is that a surplus? If an agency was appropriated $500,000 and they only spent $3,
it's the entirety, the list, Senator, is that long of things that the auditors go through, transfers.
Can you speak into the mic, Lester? I'm sorry, I'm back here, the audio is bad.
Senator, if I could just intervene
yes,
on
please,
this.
Mr. Byrne.
It's not a difference between an expenditure and an appropriation. It's a difference between revenues and expenditure.
So, Mr. Byrne, what is the difference between if we appropriate $500,000 to an agency, they only spent $300, and by the end of the year, the fiscal year ended, there's remaining, if the legislature didn't allow that agency to be able to continue their lapses, what is that money called? What are you calling it? Surplus?
No,
lapses?
That's a lapse.
Okay, it's called a lapse. Okay, I just wanted to be clear. So in FY21, there is $1.5 million in lapses. Is that correct, Mr. Byrne?
No, I think Mr. Carlson said there was $1.5 million in surplus.
For FY21?
Yes.
Okay. Then can you explain to me, Lester, on page... Okay, let's go to page, I believe, page 9. The first one, operations. The first section, it says operations, additional funding for operations, direct appropriation for 2% general fund reserve. Fund source utilized 40, okay, not that one. Expenditures, let's go to expenditures. I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3. 3, Chamorro Land Trust, operations. Funding source was 137,511. Expenditures is 111,410. So you have it in yellow, 26,100. Okay, so that's funding that has not been spent. That's the balance, right? You're looking at balance?
Senator, there is a one-page, revised one-page summary that was passed out.
Earlier today, got it.
You go down to the attachments, it kind of gives you an idea of what is contained in the different sections. Right now, you're talking about something on page 9. Basically, we begin to tell you what it is that the agencies were budgeted, what they spent, what they encumbered, and what the appropriation balance is. And this is from starting on page 8, FY22 excess revenue appropriations.
Okay, Lester, can you show me where the 1.5 million for FY21 expenditures is located on this spreadsheet?
It's not,
It's not.
because we're talking about FY22.
Well, but you have FY21 here. It says FY21 on the first page, page 1 of 16. FY21 expenditures include audit expenditures plus prior year fund balance 1.5 million. Can you show me on the spreadsheet where you came up that 1.5?
For the purposes of what we're doing, Senator, how we ended up fiscal year 21 didn't matter.
What?
So, it did not matter.
What, it doesn't matter where 1.5, we didn't know this legislature who appropriates funds? It doesn't matter where we know this 1.5 where it came from?
You should.
Well, we would if you answer our questions and give us the information.
The audit came out 2 years ago.
So the 1.5 has been sitting there and nobody has touched it, right? Is that what you're saying? So we have access to 1.5 right now?
No, Senator.
No?
No.
Okay, so
I'll let Mr. Byrne explain, but I'll end by saying, when you look at an audit, and apparently you haven't in a while, the ending balance is then taken up to the beginning balance for the next fiscal year. That's how surpluses are taken. Same thing with deficits. So it's incorporated moving forward. And we had a good 22, and we had a good 23. Unfortunately, we over appropriated in 22. So what you're looking at is our reconciliation of excess revenues so that we could pare it down and balance our checkbook.
well, you know, Lester, number one, if you'd give us information and the administration is
my-
more transparent
not my
to this
business.
body, then maybe we could understand the numbers that you're trying to find a way to hide from us so that we don't have access to any of this money. So as far as audit is concerned, yes, I've read audits. The last one I read is the Guam Memorial Hospital audit, the most recent audit that came out. For you to say that, you know, it's obvious that this piece of paper that you gave us was to try and confuse us more than have us understand. Because when we ask you a question, Lester, you try every possible way to make sure you spin it around so that we don't understand it. Simplify it. Some of us don't have the degree of, you know, that you do when it comes to finances, but you're supposed to show us how this is done. when we ask, but unfortunately you don't want to do that. That's fine, Lester. So we'll move on because we know now this whole spreadsheet is to take what we appropriated from excess FY22 funds
That's
for
what
you to take it
That's
and say,
what the bill said.
You know, it's ironic. You talk about audits, and you have this red on page, on the page where it shows 19 million in red. You know, for any accountant, red means, you know, it's a warning sign. 19 million. And you're talking about 22. How do you know this? Is if the audit came out today, Lester, and it says that we had excess revenue in FY22 for 19, or let's say 20 million, round it off, 20 million. Would this be in red still on your spreadsheet? Would you be doing a new spreadsheet and this would be in the black instead of the red?
Look at this, please.
I just asked you a question. Can you answer?
Look at this, please, because you accuse me of not giving you information. I counter that by saying you never read it. Read it.
Why don't you answer the question?
Why don't you read what I had?
I did. You have
Mr. Chair,
19 million in
It's right
red.
there. The 19 is right there.
It's in red, Lester, and red indicates that it's a warning. You talk about FY22, but the audit hasn't even come out yet.
You over-appropriated.
How can we over-appropriate when we haven't even had an audit to tell us how much we have in excess?
I give you reports every month that I
Okay.
guess you don't read.
Mr. Byrne?
Your time has run out.
Well, what, the arguing counts on this because a guy
no.
won't do, is that his tactic too? It's typical. His tactic to keep the argument so I can't ask other questions. Allow me, Mr. Chair, 1 minute to ask Mr. Byrne about the CRER report.
Senator Titagui, let me
Please
read
allow
the
her.
rules of engagement. It doesn't count against you on the response. It's every time you keep speaking, that's where it goes against you. It's not about the response.
Mr. Chair, all he
Okay.
is doing is not allowing to answer it's not answering my question. That's all. And he keeps doing it and doing so. I'm asking, Mr. Chair, as the Vice Chair of Appropriations, to allow me 1 minute to ask about the CRER report. I haven't even got to the hospital yet.
We're not going to allow unless one of the senators is going to give you their time. Otherwise, we'll move on. We're at the end of the first round. We got one more round, Senator Titagui. I know you're my vice chair. I know that quite clearly. You don't have to remind me of that.
Well, Mr. Chair, if you cannot recognize when this administration is just trying to do everything possible to not answer our questions and allow us a little bit more time because it's obvious they're doing that, unless you can tell the panel to answer the question.
He made
you're just allowing him to go. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Your time has expired. We will now proceed to the second round. And I'll begin with you for the second round so you can continue your question. We are now at the second round, my colleagues. Thank you.
Mr. Byrne, what is the CRER report for FY22 shortage? Here in this first page that was submitted to us, it's saying 0. FY22 special funds anticipated shortfall. It says 0. Is that true to form? It's 0? We don't have a shortfall in special funds for FY22?
For FY22, I can answer that question.
Thank you.
We did have a shortfall in special funds that was subsidized by the general fund, and it was about 1.8 million.
August, it's showing that there was an approximately in FY22, 8.4 million. At the end of the last fiscal year, the last CRER report for FY22, 8.4 million. And you're saying it was what, only 1?
I think you need to make a distinction between a shortfall in revenues and a deficit on the fund balance. The audit deals with the deficit on the fund balance, and I repeat, it was 1.8 million.
Okay, Mr. Byrne, if you look at the Healthy Futures Fund, you're looking close to 7 million there or 6 million there, and then you go to the Highway Territorial Fund, you're looking at an additional couple million there. So if you're trying to take the balance of like, okay, I'm not going to waste my time on that, there is a shortfall. You have 0 here. So what is the estimated shortfall for FY23 for special funds? An estimate. I can't hear. I can't hear.
It says general fund reconciliation summary. It's a culmination of the work on the spreadsheets we did. So there is a $19 million appropriation. This shows you, and then the subsequent pages answers your questions, because on page 6, it shows you a $19 million deficit. And this basically summarizes what we did so we could address the $30 million request. We're answering everything that you asked for.
Mr. Byrne, what is the CRER report ending for FY23? What is the shortfall, estimated shortfall?
Shortfall in what, Senator?
For the CRER report on the special funds, here it's showing 13,407,253. Okay, that's estimated for FY23. Right? Okay, we haven't got the CRER report this month yet, so you're putting an estimate. However, we ended in August 15 million. So you're saying that there was we were able to recover some revenue, additional, well, tried to get to more to the appropriated amount?
I counted 10 million in August.
So what is the estimated excess revenue for the next CRER report coming out? What are we going to see for FY24? I mean, 23?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 million.
In excess revenue for the next CRER report coming out the end of September.
Which basically winds up the rest of the fiscal year.
The end of 23, right? I want to verify. So you're saying $40 million in excess revenue after all that we have appropriated for FY23?
Yep. Yes.
Lillian, what is the last renovations that was done at the hospital besides the emergency room that was done during the Camacho and Calvo together combined? They did renovations for the emergency room and they also did renovations for the ICU department. What has the hospital done in the last 5 years to do any kind of renovation?
I'm going to yield that question to Mr. Kando. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Senator Taitui. So in the previous oversight hearing, we went back to, we gave recently completed projects. We talked about telemedicine program expansion. We talked about the rooftop repair, A, B, D, and E wings. Ongoing maintenance of the main panel and sub-panels. We completed the HVAC system isolation at the SNF, skilled nursing facility, 25 out of 64 air handling units, repairs to our main chillers.
Mr. Canto, can you tell me which ones that are completed, not ones that are ongoing, but are completed?
Laboratory rooftop, laboratory mechanical on the roof.
What about the mold in the hospital?
Well, we're going through an assessment.
You're still
for the
going
mold.
through an assessment?
We expect a report at the end of this month by an industrial hygienist. And we mentioned that yesterday, I believe.
Continue, if there's anything else.
We have an ongoing liquid oxygen tank enclosure and tank replacement project going on. We're maintaining and upgrading our medical vacuum pumps. We're close to proceeding with an angio suite and hemodynamic unit replacement. We launched the electronic health record. These are all CIPs.
Okay, but how many of those that you mentioned are already fully provided funding for to complete? Are they all funded? Everything that you just mentioned?
The 25 out of 64 AHUs, yes. They
Okay,
were
so the
funded.
20 million that is supposedly, hopefully, is going to come to the hospital, regardless if this bill passes or not, it's needed. It's ridiculous to say, well, I'm going to hold hostage 20 million APR funding and unless you pass this other bill is ridiculous. So of the 20 million that you said at the beginning, it's going to be about 20 million. What projects is going to fund that 20 million exactly to completion? Not halfway through, but to completion.
We're looking at replacing, relocating and replacing our main panel and sub-panels. We're looking at structural architectural improvements to include the hospital's envelope, because we fixed most of the rooftop, but the envelope, the window seals, the doors need to be replaced and upgraded. We're talking about mitigating the courtyards, front and middle courtyards. Z-wing demolition is still in progress. We still have to demolish a small portion of the Z-wing, retrofit the first floor and do the parking expansions. NICU, we're looking at NICU expansion because we're short on NICU capacity. We're looking at doing the rest of the air handling units. We're looking at removing and replacing one of our 1.6 megawatt generators, emergency generators. IT network and systems infrastructure needs.
So this is all the 20 million, correct?
I'm not done yet. We're also looking at replacing our chillers.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that 20 million is going to cover everything that you mentioned to its completion.
Well, these are estimated cost. These are cost estimates. So what they come in actual, of course, the 20 million will flex around so that we
Well,
can.
shouldn't you already have that? I think in 2017, I believe there was an educational program that went around the island to ask what the current hospital really needs, and you were a part of that. And didn't you have those plans in place already? I mean, this has been going on for quite some time.
Yes, Senator. The Army Corps gave us a $21 million cost estimate prior to COVID.
Right. So it is 21. So actually, you really need 21 million, not 20 million.
That is an extreme shortfall, given the fact that all those years have passed by, and we've focused on a lot of renovations. Actually, during COVID, we replaced a lot of medical equipment during COVID because we had that federal funding. So that was our focus on 3-4 years. When we were going through COVID, we did a lot of renovations and a lot of equipment upgrades.
Mr. Canto, as a planner over at the hospital, shouldn't you always be on top of it? How much, if someone were to ask you the question, how much does it cost now to fix that roof? And you're going to say, I don't know, the last one we got was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it might be a little bit more. Aren't you supposed to have that updated constantly?
I don't need to answer that question because we already fixed the roof. I already know how much it cost.
Well, I'm giving you an example. I'm not talking about the roof. I'm just giving you an example of a project that needs to be repaired at the hospital. Aren't you supposed to have that information constantly if you get it? I mean, it's bad enough procurement is so slow up there.
And it is available.
You have been in this position how long, Mr. Canto? How long have you been in this position?
Our 5-year strategic plan is on our hospital website. Attached to that new 5-year strategic plan is a 5-year CIP plan. The cost of that 5-year CIP plan is not 21 million. It's about 140 million.
Okay, so my question again, Mr. Canto, what are you going to spend the 20 million on?
I just explained it.
And that all those that you said is going to total up to 20 million, and then you just told me, well, that's based on another figure a while ago, but you're saying that the 20 million will cover everything that you just mentioned to me.
It will cover the most critical needs that we need.
Okay, why haven't I heard mold?
For this year coming up, that's what it will cover.
Is anything in there
not for the full 5-year CIP plan.
Mr. Canto, any of that have mold in it to rectify all the mold that's happening at the hospital?
What is your question?
Any of the mold that's, the issues at the hospital about mold you just talked about, you're just reassessing. But I didn't hear in that list anything on mold.
The mold, if it's assessed and found, like in our HVAC system, that will be covered by, as we replace air handling units, we're also replacing ducting systems as well. So if it's we're gonna replace those AHUs, and some of those areas we have to put in new ducting, and so we'll see what the industrial hygienist says, whether we have to replace with new ducting or not. Some areas like ICU and ER are since 2013. They need new ducting. So of course, all of these projects have a design phase, and the designer is gonna, we're gonna design these so that we're doing the right thing.
So, Lillian, what is the issue with the Joint Commission coming to inspect the hospital right now and its condition right now? Do you think we will fail or pass?
Senator, we're not going with Joint Commission. the board has selected the CIHQ as the accrediting organization that is pretty much deemed by CMS. And so their standards are aligned with CMS. They did a mock survey in August, and so our team is already pretty much engaging into all the corrective actions that they need to put into place with those findings from the mock survey. So it's the CIHQ accrediting organization that we are following, not Joint Commission.
Okay, sorry. Do you think we'll pass then, the CIHQ?
Based on their mock survey, they have advised us that it would be best and it would be really more realistic for us to have 12 months, to give us 12 months to then actually apply for the accreditation, for the full accreditation. What we went through is a mock survey. And so they're giving us the opportunity of 12 months, 12 to 18, to then remedy all those findings, and that way we will be better prepared for the actual accreditation.
Better prepared because right now you would totally fail if they were to do an inspection at the hospital
Senator,
right now.
please do not say that we totally fail.
Lillian,
we continue to provide the service, and we continue to save lives in the hospital. So thank you.
Madam, you know.
Senator Tideway, Senator Brown?
I'll defer my time to Senator Tideway to finish
Okay.
your question.
Thank you.
You got additional 5 minutes.
Lillian, you even mentioned during the last oversight hearing that if it were you, you would shut down the hospital. And today you're coming in front of us painting a whole different picture. I believe in optimism. I mean, I believe that maybe we can push harder, and that's what we're doing here. That's what this bill is all about, even the resolution. Even the possibility of going into receivership. I'm hearing from doctors and nurses. I'm hearing from people in the community that let's just go into receivership because we need people who are very experienced on running a hospital to get our hospital up to par. So I just don't understand this group that you hired, different from the Joint Commission. Is the reason why you hired these guys is because they'll probably give you another 12 months, or why did you hire this individual compared to the Joint Commission? What's the difference between the two?
Senator, we did not hire the CIHQ surveyors. We contract them to then go through the process if we are meeting the standards. And so they are deemed by CMS as far as they are in alignment with the CMS conditions of participation. It is something that we really, any organization, it is credible to have an outsider review our services, review our facility, if we are meeting the standards. And so it's an exercise that, again, it's only going to be very beneficial. It's a learning opportunity for us to then improve. And so that's the purpose of having an accreditation. You know, we are CMS certified, and so every year these surveyors come through and they go through our records, they interview patients, they interview staff, to see if we are delivering the safe and excellent care as best as we can, given our resources.
Given our resources, so they allow lenience for mold on the wall, falling ceilings, not enough wipes to clean patients. So that's the lenience they give. It doesn't make any sense. But
if we can
our
move
people
forward,
deserve more
Senator,
than that.
We have wipes, so please let's not be hung up on that one. We have
If
wipes.
it's what is it tomorrow then, Lillian? It was wipes yesterday. What is it for tomorrow? What else are we going to hear from our constituents coming to us, or nurses or doctors who work at GMH? What's next? I mean, where's your plan? When one of your board members came in front of us for their confirmation, we asked them, what is the plan for the current hospital, not the new, because the only thing that everybody talks about in this administration is a new hospital. But what about our current? It's like telling a mother who's ready to give birth, saying, no, keep it closed, don't push out that baby right now because we're not ready. We can't afford to do that. There should have been a plan in place. And as far as this task force. I introduced legislation to have a task force and bring everybody to the table. And what happened? The governor just ignored it and opened their own task force with Gita, didn't invite those people, and it was like their secret meetings. The task force should have been speaking about the current hospital today.
Senator, you were invited to the meeting.
I did.
You
forced
attended
myself
the meeting,
to
so
that.
It wasn't a secret meeting. I'm sorry.
I forced myself onto that task force. I made myself good. I attended. I wanted to know what was going on. You guys might be, want to play secret, but I'm going to be there. That's my job. And your job is to provide a safe environment, a public health facility where people are not afraid of going to. I got a call last night from an individual who waited in the garage of the hospital for 2 hours. 2 hours, couldn't breathe. Come to find out she tested positive for COVID before somebody paid attention and had to isolate her. 2 hours. Sick. Unacceptable. And you guys sit there painting a picture like, oh, everything's hunky-dory. That's what you've been doing for 5 years. And nothing has happened. What happens now, Lillian, if the governor doesn't give you that $20 million today, and all that Mr. Canto had mentioned that needed to be repaired, what happens from this CIHQ report that will come to you if you don't get that $20 million? What will happen?
We continue to give the best care that we can, Senator. And if I may, you have absolutely no appreciation, no understanding of what the enormity, the intensity, and the overwhelming challenges to continue operating the hospital. The staff give their heart and soul. Throughout COVID, we were there risking our lives, and yet you seriously think that we were just not doing anything? You were comfortable and you were safe at home. We risked our lives at that hospital and we saved lives. So truly, Mr. Chairman, I don't think we need to be here anymore.
Oh, again, get out of the, okay, when it's hot, it's time to split, right, Lillian? Once again. That's not the point. The
Senator,
point is, we've heard from nurses, we've heard from doctors, Lillian.
Senator Tadegui, can we stick to Bill
You're a leader.
164, please?
The point I asked was 20 million, what will happen, Mr. Chair? The question I asked, and don't tie me on that because now they're making me repeat my question.
We have given you an explanation what we will use that 20 million for.
Oh, yeah, but what happens if you don't get it?
We continue to give the care. We continue to take care of
status
patients.
quo. Continue status quo. The people of Guam that are listening, status quo, and that is not acceptable. That's why
if you can do a better job, please.
You know,
go ahead. Come on, do a better job. Thank you.
Lillian, you should have just retired.
Senator Tadegui, that's out of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I'm giving my opinion too, just like she's doing
Senator
hers.
Tadegui, do I need to read the rules? You will not. Personal inference into the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Period. No debate.
Mr. Chair.
I already asked you that.
I said she should have retired.
That's
Think
enough.
of your health, Lillian.
That's enough. Senator Tadegui, I already warned you. Continue. You got 41 seconds, and then we'll end it. Move on to the next senator.
You talked about how the vendors are owed money and they're not getting paid, and they're deciding to continue giving out supplies to the hospital. Well, that's not what we're hearing. We're hearing that these vendors are ready to hang it up and said enough is enough. The governor has ARP funding that can pay these vendors to keep them online, to help save people at the hospital. Have you sat and asked the governor to please infuse some of that ARP funding to the hospital, Lillian?
Senator Tadegui, the governor has transferred to GMH $31.4 million in ARP funding for vital service requirements at GMH, so 31.4. She's also provided 36.5 in discretionary funds, albeit this goes back to the Calvo administration. So a total of $66.9 million in discretionary funding has been provided to the hospital over the years. In the recent past, via ARP, it's 31.4, and we're committed to another 20.
You are committed, regardless if this bill passes, Lester?
When I spoke to Senator Lujan, it was a package deal.
Well, that's a shame. The governor has the ability to give $20 million, and it's contingent upon this bill. That's shameful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's also a shame that you have $30 million that you could put in that you're fighting.
Thank you, Senator Tydegui. Senator Fisher, do you have any questions for the panel?
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I'll just follow up with what Ms. Posada said. I would like to thank you, and I hope you will express my gratitude to everyone working at the Guam Memorial Hospital who sacrificed and risked themselves during the recent pandemic and are continuing to do so again as COVID rebounds. So I want to thank you very much for your service. And I'm going to go back to the Health Care Act. There is, in fact, in the Health Care Act, it is defined what the committee is that is supposed to help us get the new hospital done. Includes GITA, and it includes BBMR, includes Department of Public Works, Bureau of Statistics and Planning. It also includes the Legislative Committee chairperson with jurisdiction on health matters. I think we know that that is Senator Terlahi. Has the legislative liaison to the task force been attending the task force?
They were. Speaker Terlahi, I think, attended a couple of them and sent her representative. And there were other members, such as the Guam Housing, the GURA, but we haven't had a meeting in over a year because of the landlocked with the situation.
Well, thank you. Were you satisfied with and I mean the legislators, were you satisfied with our position or petition or participation rather on the committee?
They expressed their concerns, and they were engaged in the discussions and how we envision this new hospital and new campus.
Okay, so it is untrue to say that the legislature has not been informed of what the committee is doing.
It's untrue. They were invited, yes.
All right, and if we didn't show up, that's on us.
And sometimes they showed up. So
okay, sometimes they showed up.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
All right.
Point of information, Mr. Chair. Again, they're confusing apples and oranges. The meetings that a certain task force had, where the legislature with members, we attended. Then there were no more meetings. Okay. So to say we did not attend some other kind of task force meetings or GITA meetings, that's what happened. Those meetings were not.
Understand, sir. Speaker.
There were no invitations to those meetings.
Understood. Thank you. Senator Fisher, please continue.
Yes, thank you very much. I don't think an invitation, Mr. Chair, was required since it's in the statute. And, if we didn't show up,
that's what I'm saying, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry.
The meetings held by the committee in the statute, we attended. But there were other meetings, and I went through this in a public oversight hearing regarding the new hospital to show this, and the senators just didn't pay attention. That there were so many more meetings outside of any kind of committee.
Madam Speaker, I am not questioning what you're saying. Whatever Senator Fisher's mentioning is the statute. Why don't we just move on with the question?
Mr. Chair, I was in the hearing too, and I was paying attention, and I remember the chain of events that were laid out.
Understood.
It seems to me, Mr. Chair, I want to move on, but it seems to me there's a lot of guilt in the room. These people are jumping up to defend themselves.
No, Mr. Chair, there's a lot of ignorance. Honestly, ignorance and the audacity to try to confuse the public with what the actual facts are versus the myths that they carry in their minds.
Order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Fisher, can we move along, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank
If
you.
I can just address a question to the chair. Sir, can we have and ensure regular order in the House going forward? Okay, and I've got some more questions. I've got 3 minutes and 8 seconds. The task force that we're referring to, of course, is contained within the healthcare plan, which passed unanimously in this body. And again, the governor gave a glowing recommendation to it. And so here's the plan. Let's do it. I understand the problem with getting the land. I understand that. But we need to take care of that. We need to not drag our feet. We need not keep those bills tied up in committee, so we cannot resolve these issues because we need the hospital, the new one. And by the way, this health care bill that was passed unanimously, again, unanimously, does contain, I believe, a provision whereby the new contractor will maintain and participate in the maintenance of the hospital while the new one is being constructed. What I've said, Lillian, is it largely accurate, inaccurate?
I didn't understand that, Senator. What was that?
What I've just said, is it accurate forget all that. We need to get that land secured.
Correct.
And then we can start building the new hospital.
We can start the process in terms of RFP for a contractor, for the A&E design, all of that.
Okay, and so long as we hold up and refuse to move forward on the land issue, then this new hospital is not going to go forward. Is that correct?
We can't move forward.
Mr. Chair, we're here on an emergency bill, very specific.
Yes.
Funding what the BBMR has called like junk to put to the hospital that's not available. And he's proposing another proposal, and now we're hearing talk about land.
Order.
Madam Speaker, Senator Fisher has the floor. He can ask any questions, and I'd ask everyone to please, your turn's coming up real soon, and it's no different what Senator Canata brought up. Continue on Bill 164, please, Senator Fisher.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And, I don't really have too much more. People are protesting a lot when we ask these questions. Don't quite understand what the problem is, but okay, so I just want to be clear. We've got the plan in place. We just need the land. We get the land, then we start moving forward. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Senator Paris? Oh, wait, let's take a 5-minute recess real quick. 5 minutes. You want it 10? Then it'll be 5 minutes recess. committee of the whole is called back to order. Senator Canata, you're next after Senator Fisher. You're next, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion to suspend further discussion on Bill 162 and proceed to the or 164, and then proceed to comments and amendments on the bill.
My colleagues, there's an amendment on the floor to suspend or to end the second round and proceed to the third round, which is comments and amendments. I heard an objection. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes. We will now proceed to third round. I'd like to thank the panel and thank you for your attendance. Lillian, thank you very much for your attendance and your staff, and please extend our thank you for what you have done. All right, we will now recess at this time and prepare for the third round. Committee of the Whole is called back to order. My colleagues, at this point, we're on the third round with amendments and comments. We only have one amendment, and that's been authored by Minority Leader Senator Frank Jr., Frank Bloss. It's found on file number B164BJL2-4P1COTW.docs. Senator Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, thank you very much. As a result of the discussions we had in the committee of the whole, one of the things that we found, and we appreciate the information that was provided by the administration, and sometimes you got to wonder whether the administration is just, when we looked at this, the information here, and we got ourselves wrapped around whether or not there was monies in fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23 that was left over. But there was an entry in the paperwork that provided that basically showed fiscal year 2021 and with a basically funds available in excess of $30 million. And so what we wanted to do is maybe to be able to capture that kind of money without being able to touch fiscal year 2024. I proposed this amendment here that says, notwithstanding any other provision of law, all unappropriated prior fiscal year excess general funds of at least $30 million shall be appropriated to the Guam Memorial Hospital to pay outstanding vendor payments and to perform necessary repairs, and all such vendor payments shall be made by the Department of Administration. That way we don't have this, shifting of hands and everything. DOA is able to make the payments, and so make the payments directly to them. So that is the amendment as being provided, and ask my colleagues for their support.
Thank you. I'll begin with, does anyone would like to comment to this amendment? I'll begin with Senator Tideway, and then we'll go around for all the senators to comment if need be.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, this would have given us an opportunity in one more round to discuss, where exactly is all the excess revenue, whether it's 22, 23, 21. In fact, in the printout that was provided to us earlier, I've looked at it, even with my colleagues, to say, okay, well, it's showing here 1.5 on the first sheet of any excess revenue for FY21. But then if you go further into this spreadsheet, it's showing there's an excess of $30,351,000 for FY21. And then it doesn't show where that $30 million came from, whether it came from a lapse fund of a certain agency, like some of these other agencies, Health Professional Licensing Office, where the fund source was $283,541, and they expended and encumbered $121,170, leaving a balance of $96,000. That's FY22. But if you try to look where 21, where the bulk of the funds they say they have, it doesn't explain where this money came from. And that's what I was trying to ask Mr. Carlson from BBMR to answer some questions, and he just refused to do it. It's unfortunate, very unfortunate, that we have an administration that just tends to keep hiding things from us. I don't have a problem with this amendment, and I'm going to hold this administration to it, to ensure that whatever they use in 21, it makes me wonder, Mr. Chair, is there anything left in FY20? Wow. But you know what? This amendment covers that in the event there is. But we should have an oversight, Mr. Chair, as the chairman of the appropriation, have an oversight for BBMR. If they're showing us today that there's $30 million for FY21, Well, it's confusing. Strike that. They also told us it's 1.5 in 21, but then you go further in, it says 30. It's very confusing. We should have an oversight of BBMR. And find out, Mr. Chair, where that 30 million came from in FY21 that they placed in here. Or is it 1.5? See, it's very confusing. We set out a goal. We set out a goal to help the hospital. We asked what they're going to do with this so-called 20 million of ARP money if they were given, where they're going to fix at Guam Memorial. This 30 million will cover the vendors to ensure that they don't stop providing supplies to our hospital, our only public hospital. So I thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity just to explain a few things. And unfortunately, I'm very disappointed the fact that we didn't continue to speak with the panel that we were hoping to talk to for the last 2 days and only allowing one round. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Typhoon. Senator Fisher, do you have any comments? Nothing. Senator Kinanta, do you have any comments? None? Senator Perez, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I do actually. Can you just clarify, Mr. Chair, so where the source of the funding is going to come from for the bill? Because right now, if you can just do a recap on the available funding.
You want to know the source? It's very clear. Now, is any unappropriated funds from prior fiscal year, general fund?
Yeah, so the bill says unappropriated fiscal year 2022, but we
No, they strike that. They strike that. They strike
they
22 and 23.
They struck it?
Do you have a copy of the amendment?
Is it, but the amendment, oh, sorry, are we on the amendment?
We're on the amendments right now. Yeah, they struck out fiscal year 22 and 23, so it's basic. It's capturing whatever years is available. If there's any unappropriated excess general funds of at least $30 million, so.
I guess a question too, so excess, do we also want to expand it to lapse funds? Do we know how much lapse funds there are?
We need to understand that when they identify lapse is when you don't use it, it becomes lapse, and then at the end of the year when the audit's all done, it identifies what's excess or what's surplus. So to add the word lapse, it's unappropriate. It'll fall into the category as excess at the end of the year. That's when it changes from lapse to excess. If there's no authority to grant them to continue to use that money.
So just to clarify, excess is unaudited. Is that correct?
That's right. It's unaudited, unappropriated. It's unappropriated prior year excess general funds.
Okay, so unappropriated, unaudited general funds. And that could include lapse funds too, correct?
But understanding the lapse is only when at the end of the year you didn't use it, it identifies lapse. When it falls in the category, then it's grouped with everybody else to become a surplus or excess.
Okay, so then that would include it then. This is a bigger umbrella.
It catches it all.
Okay, so prior fiscal year excess includes unaudited, lapsed.
No, it's just unappropriated.
Funds. Unappropriated funds. Okay,
Correct.
Gotcha.
Remember, you're only commenting on the amendment only.
Okay.
We haven't got to the bill.
All right. Yeah, no, I think this is good.
All right. Thank you. Senator Shelton, do you have anything? None? Senator Brown, anything? None? Senator Luan?
Just one thing, as the author of this amendment, Mr. Chairman, I support the amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're the author of the bill, not the amendment. Thank you. Senator, Madam Speaker, do you have any comments on the amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chair. it's too bad that we released the panel before anybody asked them whether this is even a viable funding source. And now we're just going to act in the dark again, and again get accused of phantom appropriations. When BBMR and the governor's fiscal team was down here, they told us that the original funding source of the bill, which was FY 2022 excess, that there was not enough excess to fund anything. They told us there was no FY 23 excess because there was no audit. So yes, the bill does need to be amended, otherwise there would be no viable funding source, but the funding source in the amendment is now prior fiscal year excess general funds. And when I was questioning the fiscal team, they were telling us, when they were trying to explain their front page, they didn't even get to page 13, but when they're trying to explain the front page, they said every excess balance at the end of the fiscal years is taken and put up onto the fund balance of the next fiscal year. In other words, he says he told in response to a very specific question, I think, that those funds don't exist anymore. Because I had asked, where are the funds? They didn't really answer, but another senator asked, you know, what about the prior year balances? And he said those are taken. For example, FY 22 balance is taken and it's included in the new fund balance on the top for FY 23. So I think we need the panel, Mr. Chair. It doesn't make any sense to try to make this up, and they're not here to tell us whether there's actual funds, unless OFB can tell you what amounts are actually available to us in prior fiscal year excess general funds, because I'm pretty sure we asked this during the budget as well. Because when we were looking for funds, well, what are the prior year excess? Is there anything there? That was not made available to us at all. So for that purpose, I can't support this, because from what they told us and testified today, it's not viable. And we know what the viable source is. They told us the governor's going to give 20 million at some time, some indefinite date, contingent on some, who knows what, 20 million that's sitting in the bank for CIPs that are not even ready to go. I think she should give the 20 million today or 30 million today for the vendors that are past due, for the supplies that they need immediately. And when we find this amount and we bring this panel back and they tell us what this amount is, if there's actual money, then by all means, we can put it towards the CIP projects. Because they've testified they're not ready to go with those. They're still deciding what the top priorities are over there. They're changing their minds about the priorities there. And now, in the meantime, no one's insisting that the governor put the 20 million and pay the vendors. And they testified that there's nothing to prevent the governor from using the ARP for these critical supplies at the hospital. And if that's the only viable source, then let's do that. I think the governor's fiscal team was trying to make a proposal down here, but we couldn't hear them out. Their proposal was, and they gave us a list on page 13 of all kinds of appropriations to the hospital, 15 million, to behavioral health for detox and rehab, to the Veterans Affairs Office for internment, for EPA, for charter schools. Their plan was to deappropriate from these things, and that's how they would come up with 30 million. That was their clever plan. But they wouldn't be, no one in here would give them the time to say it on the record. Even though that's their plan that they passed out. And now we want to say this other source that I think it's actually contrary to what they testified. So without them here to tell us whether there's actually any money here, I think all the testimony that we've heard is the opposite, that this, they've transferred already to the succeeding fiscal year fund balance, so this does not exist anymore. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Burnett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just ask first, I do have an amendment to the amendment, but I wanted to ask first if we could confer with legal to ensure that this language in this amendment doesn't jeopardize any appropriations that this body has made, Mr. Chair?
Okay, we'll take a quick recess so we can have her review that. Was the answer provided to you that there's legally good? Okay.
I did have an amendment to the amendment,
You have an
Mr.
amendment
Chair.
to amend. Can we get a hard copy, please?
Yes, the clerks will be distributing it.
Okay, so we'll go back to recess until we all get a copy, so everybody has something in their hands. I'm hoping to be done with this in the next 30 minutes. Thank you. Back to recess until we get hard copies of the new amendment to the amendment. Committee of the Whole is called back to order. My colleagues, you should have a copy of the amendment.
Call for the question.
Where's my copy? I'm just waiting for my copy. Okay, my colleagues, you all have a copy of the amendment.
Go. Mr. Chair, call for the question.
Senator Duenas, wait. Senator Frank?
Call for the question, Mr. Chair.
Call for the question.
Objection. Mr. Chair, I had an amendment to the amendment.
Yes, well, there's a call for the question. Let's finish that motion, and then we'll go to yours.
But
You
didn't I
you
have the
object
floor,
to-
Mr. Chair?
No, well, there was asking for a call for the question, and that asks,
Why are you scared?
oh, who's afraid? I
No,
don't
not
know.
you.
Not me, I'm not afraid. I'm too old to be afraid. Anyway, there's a motion to call for the vote, or call for the question
On the amendment.
on the amendment.
Objection.
There's one objection,
Objection.
two objections.
That just cuts off the debate.
That's what it does, people of Guam, that no one can talk
I have
anymore.
a question, Mr. Chair, if I may, point of
Senator
inquiry.
Tyler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, just so I'm clear. So the amendment that was just proffered, the amendment to the amendment, okay. So what we're trying to do is just kill this amendment to the amendment, but maintain the amendment that's proffered by Senator Frank Blas. Is that the case? Because when you call for the question, doesn't it just cancel everything out? We go straight to the bill and vote on it?
No, it's good,
Okay.
because we're still on the amendment.
Okay.
It called for the question on the amendment, only.
Only on the
Only on the
amendment?
amendment, not the amendment to the amendment.
Okay, so
Now,
we vote for it. I
there's
see.
two objections.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 5. Oh. Motion fails. Okay. Senator Barnett, your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My amendment to the amendment is in the drive, and it's to amend Section 1 of the bill to read, Section 1, emergency funding, notwithstanding any other provision of law, all unappropriated prior fiscal year excess general funds of at least $30 million shall be appropriated to the Guam Memorial Hospital to pay and strike through for necessary repairs. And then I struck through all such vendor payments shall be made by the Department of Administration. I think it was clear in the Guam Memorial Hospital's testimony, Mr. Chair, that they're not really ready to move forward with the CIP projects. And the more pressing need, and even according to my Republican colleagues, is the vendor payments. And so I think that we can quickly pay the vendor payments with the ARP funds of $20 million and put this $30 million for the CIP projects, which are not ready to begin yet and may take longer to get underway. I humbly ask the support of my colleagues on this amendment to the amendment, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, I'll just go this way for comments. Senator Parkinson, you have any comments? None. Senator Duenas? None. Senator Blas? Objection. Senator Luan? No comments. Senator Brown? No comments. Senator Shelton? Senator Paris? No comments. Senator Tideway? No comments. Senator Fisher?
Yes, I object, as the minority leader does. This is not a serious amendment.
Thank you. Senator Kanata? Any comments? None? Madam Speaker? Any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think it makes sense to say that the ARP funds are available today, the vendor payments are overdue, and they could be paid today. And then GMH can get the supplies they need and pay its vendors. Get the supplies, get the Band-Aids, get whatever, the oxygen, get it. They can get it today. Otherwise, and then if this money is really a viable source, it will be available for the CIP projects. And they said those are not available, and apparently neither is this money that we're supposedly trying to give to vendors. So instead of making a mockery of it. If it's really viable, they can come in and show us how it's viable. After they testified today that they take the prior year's balances and move them up to the next fiscal year. So we've used those in our calculations of what our general fund balances are in every succeeding fiscal year. And so this is talking about going beyond FY22, prior to that. And so what I'm saying is, while the words say unappropriated, it's still talking about balances that, according to Mr. Carlson from BBMR, he has been moving those into the next fiscal year. That was a revelation today that we have never had before. Despite asking everyone, where are the prior year balances? So this amendment would allow time to flush that out. And if it's there, great. It will go to CIPs that are not even ready to go yet. But if it's not there, it won't be in the governor's words, phantomly promised for vendor payables that are urgent, and it should not be a game to pretend to give something to them to pay vendors that we can't, or is not there, that they've told us is not there, or they can't be in here to tell us is there or not. So I think it's generous. Because I actually think the governor should use $50 million to pay both the vendors and the CIP projects. It's exactly what ARP money was for. Healthcare, especially disaster compounded by COVID. And she's using it for repairs. COVID didn't cause the roof leaks, but she's able to use it for repairs. She's able to use it for a new hospital. I asked them, is there anything to impede the governor from using it for vendor payables? No one said there is. And OFB said absolutely not. There is no impediment to using ARP funds to pay for the vendor payables today. So I don't know what the game is, because it really does feel like a game where somebody made a deal about something with the governor that she can't use her ARP funds to pay for vendor payables. It's honestly, that's a sick game. Pun intended. It's sick. If the money's there, they should use it to pay for what we can get our quality supplies. And if we want to play around with this kind of funds that we can't get confirmation because my colleagues refuse to let the team stay in here and answer the questions that they asked us to bring in, then why should we try to fool the people of Guam with that kind of stuff? So this makes sense to me because it puts the most important priority under ARP funds, and the one that they're still working on, which is the CIP plans, the plans for the plans, under this kind of funding source that we still need to confirm. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would you like to make a closing?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is a serious amendment, and I thank the previous speaker for rising in support of it. It makes sense to prioritize the vendor payments. In fact, that was all my Republican colleagues were talking about a couple weeks ago. And the speaker's right. We can pay these vendors today. Could have paid them yesterday, could have paid them last week. And I also agree, it does seem like a game, and we're jumping through all these hoops when the governor, lieutenant governor, like I said in the opening of this emergency session, have all the authority and ability to address all of the critical issues at the Guam Memorial Hospital. And so I humbly ask that they do that, and I even more humbly ask that my colleagues support this amendment and get these vendors paid and the structural repairs at the Guam Memorial Hospital underway. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. There being an objection to the amendment, all in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Amendment fails. Now back to the amendment. Does anyone would like to speak on the amendment? Otherwise, I'd ask Senator Blas to go ahead and close his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I appreciate the discussion that we had with regards to the failed amendment. I just want to assure the author of that failed amendment that if you look very carefully, that it does not prioritize vendor payments or the repairs. It basically says and. So they would leave it to the administration, leave it to be able to make the distinction as to what the priority is. We hope that the priority is based on life-saving care for our people. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'm going to go ahead and close and ask my colleagues for their support on this amendment. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Blas. The amendment for this bill, as introduced, Senator Blas, all in favor, please raise your hand.
Objection.
That's why, because I know there's an objection, so I just called it. All in favor, please raise your hand. Amendment passes. Now we'll proceed to the the bill as amended. Anyone else like to speak to that? I think everyone spoke to that.
Call for the question, Mr. Chair.
Call for the question. All in favor of the Bill 164?
Of the call for the question.
Call for the question?
All in favor for the motion?
Yeah, all in favor of the motion to the
call
question?
for the
Objection.
Objection?
It just stops debate.
No debate. It's call for the question. Please raise your hand in favor of the call for the question. Motion passes. I need a motion to rise.
Mr. Chair, I move that we rise from the committee of the whole on bill number 164-37 LS as amended in the committee of the whole with the recommendation to send 164-37 to LS into the third reading file and to vote without engrossment.
Colleagues, there's a motion to rise from the committee of the whole.
Objection.
There's an objection.
Objection.
All in favor to rise from the committee of the whole, please raise your hand. Motion passes. We are now in recess and we will proceed to regular session so we can discuss the bill. Moving to the voting file. Thank you.
We're back from recess. Senator San Augustine, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to report back to the body after deliberation on Bill 164-37 LS as amended in the Committee of the Whole with a recommendation of the Committee of the Whole to place on the third reading file and vote without engrossment.
On the motion to place the bill on the third reading file, is there any objection? There's an objection. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries. On the motion to vote without engrossment, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. There are no further items in our second reading, so we will proceed to the third reading. Clerks, please read the title of the bill.
Bill number 164-37 LS, as amended in the Committee of the Whole, introduced by Jesse A. Lujan, Telu T. Tidegui, Joanne Brown, Christopher M. Duenas, Thomas J. Fisher, Frank Blas Jr. An act to provide emergency funding to the Guam Memorial Hospital.
Roll call.
Senator Barnett. Senator Barnett, pass. Senator Blas. Senator Blas, aye. Senator Brown. Senator Brown, aye. Senator Duenas. Senator Duenas, aye. Senator Fisher. Senator Fisher, aye. Senator Lujan. Senator Lujan, aye. Vice Speaker Munya-Barnes.
Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Suggest Masi, Madam Speaker, I move to excuse members not present for the vote.
On the motion to excuse members not present for voting, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
Vice Speaker Munya-Barnes, excused. Senator Parkinson. Senator Parkinson, pass. Senator Perez. Senator Perez, pass. Senator Kanata. Senator Kanata, aye. Senator San Augustine. Senator San Augustine, aye. Senator Siniclis. Senator Siniclis, excused. Senator Shelton. Senator Shelton, pass. Senator Tidegui. Senator Tidegui, pass. Speaker Terlahi. Speaker Terlahi, nay. Senator Barnett. Senator Barnett, pass. Senator Parkinson. Senator Parkinson, pass. Senator Perez. Senator Perez, pass. Senator Shelton. Senator Shelton, pass. Senator Tidegui. Senator Tidegui, pass. Senator Barnett. Senator Barnett, nay. Senator Parkinson. Senator Parkinson, nay. Senator Perez. Senator Perez. Senator Perez, aye. Senator Shelton. Senator Shelton, aye. Senator Titagui. Senator Titagui, aye.
Bill number 164-37 LS, as amended in the Committee of the Whole, received 10 ayes and 3 nays and 2 excused. Bill number 164-37 LS is duly passed by the body. Is there anyone who would like to be recognized on extension of remarks? If not, if there's a motion to adjourn, Majority Leader, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker. I move to adjourn today's session subject to the call of the Speaker.
Is there any objection to adjournment subject to the call? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We are adjourned.